So picture this. Hundreds of billions of dollars in cash are just suddenly flooding into the US Treasury. It's this massive, unprecedented wave of money, and it's all coming from one place: tariffs. So where is all this cash coming from? Where is it going? And maybe most importantly, who's actually footing the bill? Let's break it all down.
I mean, the change has been nothing short of dramatic. Before all the recent tariff hikes, revenue was, pretty steady. Now, it has absolutely skyrocketed. This isn't just a small bump, it's a fundamental shift in how much money is being collected at the US border.
And let's put a hard number on it. As of early September, $159 billion. That's a staggering 148% jump from just 1 year ago. And the thing is, it's still climbing. All right, first up, let's follow the money. We need to get a handle on just how much cash is flooding in and what the projections are telling us about the future.
And if you think that big number is a lot, wait till you see it broken down. The U.S. is collecting about $642 million every single day from these tariffs. That's just a massive, constant stream of revenue flowing in.
And looking ahead, well, the Penn Wharton budget model projects that if these policies stay in place, the government could pull in an incredible $2.9 trillion over the next decade. But, and this is a huge but, there's a ton of uncertainty here. These are just projections, and they could easily change, especially since the tariff rates themselves are still being negotiated.
Okay, so that naturally leads to the next question: how is all this money actually collected? You might think it's complicated, but it turns out to be a surprisingly straightforward four-step process.
The process actually starts before the goods even arrive in the country. First, the importer has to file paperwork with U.S. Customs. Then, when the shipment lands, Customs checks it all out. Once everything's cleared, the goods usually head to a warehouse. And here's the key part. The importer then gets a bill and has anywhere from 10 to 30 days to pay that tariff directly to the government.
And that brings us to, well, literally the billion-dollar question. The U.S. importer is the one writing the check to the government, sure, but are they the ones who ultimately pay for it, or does that cost just get passed down the line?
Just think about it for a second. The importer is a business, right? They're basically a middleman in this long supply chain. So when they get hit with a massive new expense like this, where does that money really come from?
One expert really nailed it. They said, yes, technically, the importers pay the government, but that's just step one. The real question is how much of that cost they absorb themselves versus how much of it they pass on to the final customer, which is you.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, importers try everything. They'll go back to their foreign suppliers and push them to lower their prices, or maybe even ask them to split the cost of the tariff. For us, the consumers, the changes can be a little more subtle. Maybe that free shipping you used to get on a $35 order is now only for orders over $50. Or maybe free shipping is just gone altogether. These are the direct ripple effects of those costs getting passed on.
All right, so we've got this historic amount of money being collected. Where does it all go? What's the plan for all this revenue?
It's actually pretty simple. Once that tariff is paid, every single dollar goes into what's basically America's main checkbook, the U.S. Treasury's General Fund. From there, it's not earmarked for anything special. It's totally up to Congress to decide how that money gets spent, just like any other tax revenue.
But why? What's the big idea behind using tariffs this way? Well, for the first time, tariffs are really being seen as a major tool for raising revenue. And the reason, as one analyst put it, is that the U.S. is on an exploding debt path. The thinking is that this new fire hose of cash could help get the country's finances on more stable ground.
Okay, but let's get some perspective here, because context is everything. The current tariff rates could bring in somewhere around $234 billion a year. And while that is a huge amount of money, you have to compare it to the national debt, which is sitting at over $35 trillion. So yeah, it helps, but it's definitely not going to solve the whole problem on its own.
Now, all of this is happening against a backdrop of, well, chaos. There's extreme volatility and some very serious legal challenges, which makes the future of these tariffs incredibly uncertain. And if you want to see what this whiplash looks like in the real world, just look at the Port of Los Angeles. In April, tariffs on Chinese goods shot up to 145%, and cargo volume just plummeted. But then, later in May, they were slashed back down to 30%. And by July, the port was so swamped with ships trying to catch up that it was breaking records. I mean, how can any business plan ahead with that kind of chaos?
And if the economic swings weren't enough, there's also a massive legal battle brewing. A federal appeals court actually ruled that the president overstepped his authority in setting these tariffs.
That ruling was immediately called highly partisan and appealed, and now the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case. Meanwhile, all these importers who have paid billions are just stuck in limbo, wondering if they'll ever be able to apply for refunds. And that really gets to the core of the long-term problem. As one expert pointed out, once you put tariffs in place, they are incredibly difficult to get rid of. Domestic companies adjust, they make new investments, they might raise their prices, and they build entire business models around these new trade rules. Trying to undo all of that becomes politically and economically really, really painful.
So we've seen the billions flowing in, we've seen how the costs trickle through the economy, and we've seen the chaos it can create. It all leaves us with the biggest question of all. After all these massive disruptions, once a tariff is put in place, can you ever really turn back the clock?